In 2025, when people hear the name Oscar De La Hoya, a lot of people will think of a boxing promoter first, and then a former fighter second. Since his retirement in 2009, Oscar has become one of the biggest promoters in the world, and worked with some of the biggest names in the sport, such as Canelo Alvarez and Ryan Garcia. However, a lot of new fans of the sport may not be aware of Oscar's long and highly successful boxing career. So my aim with this video is to hopefully shed some light on what a truly special fighter Oscar was in his prime, and of course to answer the ultimate question: how good was the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, actually? Born in 1973 in Los Angeles, California, Oscar was brought up in a fighting family. His grandfather was an amateur boxer and his father was a professional. With fighting in his DNA, it was inevitable that one day he would follow in his family's footsteps and become a fighter himself. At 6 years old, he would start his journey in the sport of boxing and would soon become a superstar amateur. At the age of 15, Oscar won the National Junior Olympics 119-pound title, and he also won the 125-pound title the following year. In 1990, at age 17, he won the US National Championships at featherweight, and was the youngest US boxer at the Goodwill Games, where he won the gold medal. Sadly for Oscar, around this time his world would be flipped upside down with the news of the passing of his mother, who sadly passed away from breast cancer. Before she left the world, she expressed the hope that her son would one day become an Olympic gold medalist.
But for Oscar, the elusive quality called heart, that all fighters covet but few possess, is located in the stands. That's where his mother Cecilia used to sit, through every black eye and every bloody nose. 3 years ago, Oscar learned that she had breast cancer.
She passed away, and she was there all the time to encourage me, and she would always be in my cheering section there. And she told me, she wants a gold medal, so I guess I'm gonna get it for her.
Fueled by the desire to honour his mother's dying wish, in the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona, Oscar would turn his mother's dream into reality when he beat German boxer Marco Rudolph to win the gold medal.
Estados Unidos de América, Oscar De La Hoya.
The American media publicised his mission to fulfill his mother's dying wish and nicknamed him the Golden Boy, which would soon become one of the most recognisable nicknames in the sport. Following his Olympic triumph, Oscar would retire from the amateur game with an outstanding record of 233 wins, 5 defeats with 163 knockouts. Oscar steamrolled his early competition, stopping all but one opponent in his first 11 fights. In these early bouts, you could see the huge potential in the gold medalist. He had fast and powerful hands and was an excellent combination puncher.
Bob Arum told us the kid was great. So far, he's been better than that.
After such an explosive start to his professional career, in his 12 professional fights, Oscar would be competing for a world title at just 20 years old, taking on the undefeated Jimmy Breedle. De La Hoya dominated Breedle from the opening round and scored a knockdown in each of the first 2 rounds, first sending Breedle to the canvas midway through the first round after landing a big right hand. In the second round, with a minute left, Oscar staggered Breedle with a left and then sent him to his knees after a combination. Breedle got back up once again, but for the remainder of the fight, Breedle fought very defensively, while De La Hoya landed plenty of jabs and combinations to win each round. Breedle showed an immense amount of heart and toughness in there, but round 10 would prove to be too much for the Danish champion. Oscar would score a knockdown almost immediately after the round started, dropping Breedle with a flurry of shots. After a punishing 10th round, Breedle's corner and the ringside doctor advised for the fight to be called off. Oscar was now the new WBO Super Featherweight World Champion.
Oscar De La Hoya is the new WBO Junior Lightweight Champion of the World!
Now, not to try to diminish what was a fantastic win and achievement for Oscar, but I feel I should add some further context. In 1994, when this bout took place, the WBO wasn't considered a legit title like it is now. It kinda had the reputation of what the IBO does in the current day, but regardless, this was still a great victory and achievement. Following this win, Oscar would go on a superb run, starting with a decent undefeated contender, Italy's Giorgio Campanella. Oscar made light work of the Italian and took him out in just 3 rounds. After this, the Goldenboy would step up to lightweight and quite literally run through the division. Oscar's first fight in his new division would come against veteran Jorge Paez for the vacant WBO lightweight title. Paez was easily the most experienced and most accomplished fighter Oscar had faced thus far. However, Oscar made light work of Paez, overwhelming him and taking him out in the second round to capture the vacant WBO lightweight title.
Oscar De La Hoya with a second round knockout of Jorge Paez, who had only been knocked down once in 63 previous fights.
De La Hoya would then take on the solid number 6 WBO ranked lightweight contender John Avila. Oscar dominated the fight, winning almost every round. In the 9th round, Oscar landed a barrage of punches which caused a cut on Avila, which made him bleed profusely. Avila was checked by the ringside physician, who determined Avila could not continue and the fight was over. In his 4th defense of his WBO lightweight title, reigning champion Oscar De La Hoya was matched up against 2-time super featherweight world champion John Molina. De La Hoya had the perfect start to the fight, scoring a first round knockdown, countering a Molina right with a left hook that sent Molina down to a knee.
Try to run over him, and that's what happened. That's what happens right there.
Oscar was unable to finish Molina thereafter, as Molina was able to take De La Hoya the full 12-round distance for the first time in his career. De La Hoya was in control for the majority of the fight and won a comfortable unanimous decision. Oscar successfully defended his title a further 2 times, both by knockout, before taking on the IBF champ Rafael Reyes in a unification fight. The tall Mexican was a solid champion, but he hadn't faced anyone quite like Oscar before. Oscar dropped Reyes with a fast left hand in round 2, and would do the same again later in the round, landing another fast left hand. Oscar followed the second knockdown with fast aggressive combinations which forced the referee to step in and stop the fight. It was a statement performance from the Goldenboy. Up next came unbeaten Genaro Hernandez, who had never lost his belts in the ring and vacated his WBA strap to move up to lightweight to face Oscar. Hernandez was making the fight competitive, but Oscar was doing the damage. Once round 6 had concluded, Genaro Hernandez, who had suffered a broken nose during the fight, decided to quit.
Hernandez has quit. He said that's it. We're talking about how good De La Hoya was in that round. And those shots to the nose probably broke it. He quit.
Next up for Oscar came former super featherweight world champion Jesse James Leija. Oscar fought a very tactical fight, using his superior height and reach to his advantage. Leija was throwing a great deal but was unable to close the range effectively and land his shots. With 50 seconds remaining in the second round, Oscar landed a left hook that dropped Leija to his knees, where he remained until getting up at the count of 9.
Patterson got the war, and down goes Leija, up a left hook inside.
Looking to end the fight, De La Hoya then attacked the former world champion relentlessly and dropped him again with a left hook just as the round ended. Leija would again get back up at the count of 9, but his trainer saw enough and called the fight off.
That's the end. You can't be saved by the bell except in the last round, and referee Ron Lipton seen enough.
On June 7th, 1996, Oscar would experience his big breakout moment in his career when he faced the legendary Julio Cesar Chavez. The Mexican icon had certainly passed his prime, but he was still a world-level operator and presented a big test for Oscar. If people were still unaware of who Oscar De La Hoya was, well, that would most certainly change after this fight. He opened a cut above Chavez, which would get worse as the fight progressed. Oscar was comfortable throughout the fight, using his powerful jab well, and eventually the fight was stopped in the 4th round, as the cut on Chavez was too severe for the fight to continue. Following his great win over Chavez, Oscar would take on former WBC lightweight champion and number 1 contender, undefeated 41-0 Miguel Angel Gonzalez. For only the second time in his career to that point, De La Hoya was taking the full 12-round distance. Oscar dominated the majority of the fight, landing the much more accurate and effective punches.
Gives De La Hoya a chance to land the left hook, and Oscar clocks him. Oh, good right hand body shot and a left hook upstairs by De La Hoya, just textbook stuff.
Gonzalez did, however, manage to land a right hand to De La Hoya's left eye that left it badly bruised and nearly swollen shut by the end of the fight. After 12 rounds had concluded, all 3 judges had De La Hoya comfortably winning the fight. Another fantastic name on the already impressive resume of De La Hoya. Like I said, he was literally running through the division. Oscar then moved up to welterweight to take on the all-time great and one of the best defensive fighters of all time, Pernell Whitaker. The defensive master showed his great defensive skills in the fight, but even Pernell couldn't evade some of the fast punches from Oscar. The Goldenboy would suffer a flash knockdown in the fight in round 9 as Whitaker caught De La Hoya off balance with a left hook. It wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing fight, but Oscar did what he needed to do to win, and after 12 competitive rounds, Oscar won via a unanimous decision.
For the winner by unanimous decision, and new welterweight champion of the world, the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya!
On September 13th, 1997, Oscar would face the veteran and former world champion Hector Camacho. Camacho was past his best, but was still another solid contender. The younger and faster man in De La Hoya proved too much for Camacho, and after punishing him for over 8 rounds, De La Hoya would finally score a knockdown in the 9th.
Look at this, and finally he goes down. It's not one definitive shot, it's the cumulative effect. Terrific left hook.
Camacho was able to continue and survive the remainder of the round after clinching the aggressive De La Hoya when he came in close. Oscar was unable to get the finish, but would remain in control for the remainder of the fight. The outcome of the fight became even clearer when the referee finally punished Camacho for his constant clinching by deducting a point. After 12 rounds, Oscar would win a lopsided unanimous decision victory, with 2 of the judges having De La Hoya winning all 12 rounds. Now, I just wanted to take a moment to comment on the incredible activity of Oscar during this time. By the end of this year of 1997, he had 5 fights within the year. This is a world-class fighter in his prime, fighting top-level competition consistently. Anyway, Oscar would then rematch Julio Cesar Chavez. The rematch lasted longer than their first encounter, but it would have the same outcome. After suffering plenty of damage, including a cut above his eye, Chavez decided to quit in the 8th round. Up next for Oscar would be the undefeated Ghanaian fighter Ike Quartey. In round 6, Oscar countered the Ghanaian with a signature left hook to drop him. Later in the same round, Quartey got a left hook of his own off and dropped Oscar. The champion rose quickly and would go on to get a second knockdown in round 12, where he landed another superb left hook on the jaw of Quartey to drop him. After 12 rounds of action had concluded, Oscar had made his 6th successful defense of his WBC world title, winning by split decision. Oscar's next big test came against the superb puncher, Puerto Rico's Felix Trinidad. Again, Oscar showed he was not afraid to take on all comers. Oscar boxed to a solid game plan in the first half of the fight and was winning the majority of the rounds. However, the fight was a tale of 2 halves, and Trinidad would get himself much more into the fight in the second half as Oscar took his foot off the gas and became too comfortable. This error of judgment from Oscar cost him the fight, as he would lose by majority decision, which meant he would lose his WBC welterweight title and be handed his first professional career loss. Many believed Oscar did enough to win, but ultimately Oscar gave the fight away due to his complacency, which made the fight unnecessarily close. Oscar demanded an immediate rematch for Trinidad, but instead he would fight in an eliminator against Daryl Coley, who was the number 1 ranked welterweight by the WBC. Oscar took care of Coley, stopping him in the 7th round with body shots.
And the body shots put Coley down. 2 vicious body shots. One with each hand. Oscar De La Hoya makes good on his vow. I'm going to be a destroyer, he said, and a destroyer he was.
Oscar was supposed to then become the mandatory challenger to Trinidad, but instead the WBC champion vacated his belt to move up to middleweight, and so Oscar was once again named the WBC welterweight champion. As Oscar was unable to reach terms to fight Trinidad, he would instead face former IBF lightweight champion of the world, Shane Mosley. This turned out to be a fantastic fight between 2 very highly skilled operators. The first half of the fight was fought very tactically and was fiercely contested. The second half of the fight saw Shane take the fight as he was landing more, and crucially, he was landing the more eye-catching shots, which were winning him the rounds. It was a gutsy effort from Oscar, and he certainly put on a respectable performance, but Mosley would win by split decision. In Oscar's comeback fight, he would take on fan favourite Arturo Gatti. Gatti was past his best at this stage, but credit to Oscar, he put on a demolition job. He would drop Gatti in the final 30 seconds of round 1 after landing a barrage of punches, finishing off with his trademark left hook to drop Gatti. Things wouldn't get much better for Gatti as Oscar just couldn't miss with his shots. And in round 5, after another brutal barrage of punches from the Goldenboy, Gatti's trainer called the fight off. On September 14th, 2002, Oscar would take on Fernando Vargas. There was quite a lot of hype for Vargas at this time, while there was some skepticism over De La Hoya due to his recent defeats. Oscar would put any doubt to bed over his ability when he landed his world-class left hook in round 11 to drop Vargas heavily. Oscar then stopped the durable Vargas with a barrage of fast and heavy punches. On the 13th of September 2003, De La Hoya would then take on Shane Mosley in a huge rematch. It was another highly competitive fight, but I thought Oscar did more than enough to take it. He was throwing and landing more than Mosley throughout the fight. Mosley did come on stronger later in the fight, but it wasn't enough to sway the fight in his favour, in my opinion. Even Shane's father, in the 12th round, told him that he would need a knockout to win. However, Shane would get a very favourable unanimous decision victory. Following his controversial defeat to Mosley and losing his world title, Oscar announced his desire to move up to middleweight, and he challenged the undefeated WBO champion Felix Sturm. Sturm gave Oscar one of his hardest fights in his entire career. Sturm stood up to Oscar's punches in the early rounds, and he landed some solid shots of his own. Sturm's jab was looking strong and more accurate than Oscar's, and it was clear that the German world champion was going to push Oscar to the limit. Oscar answered back with some well put together combinations. The fight was a battle between Oscar's work rate versus Sturm's accuracy. As the fight headed into the later rounds, Oscar's work rate was starting to diminish, while the German remained at the same pace. Oscar showed some urgency in the final round, throwing more and hoping to get something off, but Sturm's defense remained solid. Fortunately for Oscar, the luck of the judges was on his side, and he would win a very close unanimous decision victory. On September 18, 2004, the undisputed middleweight championship was up for grabs as middleweight king Bernard Hopkins took on Oscar De La Hoya at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. Oscar looked considerably smaller than Hopkins in the fight, but he tried his best to go toe-to-toe with a bigger man and cause an upset. One of Oscar's advantages in the fight was his speed advantage, but it wouldn't matter as the 39-year-old Hopkins just proved too powerful for Oscar, and he would end up stopping him with a body shot in round 9.
Another good left hook to the body.
And he's using his left shoulder.
De La Hoya on a body punch by Hopkins.
He didn't even see the punch.
He doesn't look like he's going to get up,
Hopkins
guys.
was pushing him.
And he's not going to make it up. It's a Bernard Hopkins knockout.
I tried, believe me, I tried getting up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't, and believe me, I have what it takes to get up, and he caught me right on the button. I knew I could have won. I could have won this fight. I know I could have, and he's a great champion. I give him all the respect in the world. He's a great middleweight champion, and like I said, I tried to do the impossible, and it just didn't come out.
Following this brutal defeat, Oscar would take an entire year off boxing and return to the ring in 2006, taking on Ricardo Mayorga for the WBC world title. Oscar put on a destructive performance and stopped Mayorga in the 6th round. Oscar would then enter into a mega fight against boxing superstar Floyd Mayweather, which at the time was the most lucrative boxing match ever, generating over $130 million. Oscar made this one of Floyd's toughest fights in his career, and it was genuinely a close fight. During the early rounds, De La Hoya had some success cutting off the ring, using his left jab and attempting to hurt Mayweather on the inside. Despite his activity, however, many of De La Hoya's punches appeared ineffective and landed on Mayweather's arms or shoulders. Oscar was made to work hard but wasn't really getting much success, while Floyd landed the more accurate and effective shots. It was a classic Mayweather performance. He expended very little energy while remaining defensively sound and landing the cleaner shots. Each time Oscar got close, he'd be tied up and Mayweather would outmaneuver him. After a valiant effort from De La Hoya, he would lose on a split decision. Oscar would get a 12-round unanimous decision victory over Steve Forbes before entering into another huge fight against another superstar fighter in Manny Pacquiao. In his last fight of his professional career, he was beaten very convincingly, to the point that Oscar refused to continue in round 9. To be fair to Oscar, his career was pretty much over at this point. He was clearly past his prime and he was weight drained, but he did get a nice payday. De La Hoya announced his retirement on April 14th, 2009. Since his retirement from the sport, Oscar has put most of his focus into his promotional company, Goldenboy Promotions, where he would become one of the leading promoters in the world. So with all that said, how good was the Goldenboy Oscar De La Hoya actually? Oscar was an absolute animal in his prime. He had fantastic power coupled with superb combination punching. For me, he is easily one of the very best of his era and goes down as an all-time great of the sport. His body of work is one of the best I've covered on this channel, from fighting top-level contenders to world-class fighters and even all-time greats. Oscar was never afraid of a challenge and his activity during his prime was outstanding. Whatever you think of Oscar's antics outside of the ring, you cannot deny his brilliance inside the ring. He was one of the biggest superstars in the sport for a reason and provided plenty of entertaining fights over the years. So let me know what you make of the Goldenboy in the comments below, and as always, thanks very much for watching.